So welcome to Clarity Mastermind. My name is Veronica Rosenfeld, and why clarity? Clarity because I believe that clarity can save the world. Because when you clearly know who you are and what is very next for you, you create peace inside of you, and it creates peace with outside of you, and it could eradicate world wars. And if it will eradicate world wars, because I believe it also could eliminate global warming, because global warming is nothing but the reaction of environment on our actions, thoughts, and beliefs. And it's so heated that it hits the earth. So what if each of us will be in peace? And it all starts with, what if each of us will actually focus on what we're supposed to do in life and only on our mission? The life would be very different. That's why clarity. Why mastermind? Because I believe that the shortest path to get to the next level, to learn from people who've been there, who've done it, and could do it better than you, simply because they've been there. Like, I have a lot of mentors, and I say, well, you know, I'm connected, but they say, well, I'm 5 times more connected. I talked to a woman like that who, I mean, she coaches billionaires. She's like, well, yeah, because she's like, I'm to double of your age. That's why I do that. Where are you right now? You're going to be there too. So, so why don't you learn from these people? And I luckily, unfortunately, have access to quite amazing people, and I'm very fortunate to coach some of them and many of them. And so that's why I bring my wisdom to you guys. And today, today we have Tyson Russell, who is actually, you know what, Tyson, I usually give bio of people, and I forgot to ask you, as close as we're working together. So you have to tell all your escalates yourself. I'm so sorry. What I do know about Tyson, that he works with, he's backbone for like several major marketing agency. He's one of the kind and sweetest person. He has a huge heart, and wherever you ask of him, it's done and it's developed. And he, just like you, Jeremiah, he grew up in a very religious upbringing, so he gets it. I follow many different religions, so I bring all kinds of people. I'm not your regular Jewish girl, that's for sure. So, floor is all yours, Tyson. Tell us a little bit more about your bio, because I'm sorry, I should have done it, and I haven't.
That's okay. That's okay. You know, I'll start with just who I am. My name is Tyson. I work with an organization called Click and Grow Rich. I'm an online marketer. I've been doing this for roughly about 9 years now. And let me tell you my story real quick. My story began when, as an internet marketer anyway, when I was involved in a very near tragic accident. And so what happened for me personally was simply that I was making a left-hand turn on a and Jen's here too. That's great. Good to have you here. So I took a left-hand turn, and the guy like never even bothered hitting the brakes, and he slammed right into me. But one of the most amazing things that happened for me at that moment in time is that I looked over and I saw to my right as I was making my left-hand turn, and I knew he was not going to stop. And I said, God, keep me alive and keep me awake. It was very important for me to be there because I have a daughter who's who at the time was 5 years old. At the time, her mother and I were separated, and she was living with my ex, with her mother. But you know, I knew, I'm like, you know, you've got to you verbalize and command your life forward. And so that was one of the things that I did. I literally, I can tell you, like, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I looked over and I said, "O.S. God, keep me alive." It slammed into me, and if you look at the, and I won't show you the image, but if you look at the windshield,
Tyson, you're breaking up somehow. Tyson, you're breaking up.
15
Tyson, you're breaking up.
My front
Tyson, we cannot hear you. You are breaking up.
In other words, my head had gone back and forth. Veronica, we will never break up. I swear, I promise you.
We never break up, but he's gone, right? Okay. That's a story of men in my life. Anyway, it's okay. He'll come back. So I didn't hear that story. It's actually really cool. It's funny because I learn things about people that I've never
Okay,
heard.
we're back.
Tyson, you're back? You promised never break up and you disappeared.
When you're right, and then I left. You know, it's okay.
Yeah, story of my life. So let's start all over again.
What are you laughing at, girl? All right, so here's the scenario, right? So I used to be a fitness trainer, and because of that near tragic accident, I was resigned to having to figure out how.
We did not hear your accident, so we heard to the moment. And if you guys jump in, let's start with your. So you had 5-year-old daughter, and you command God. And from this point, would you mind to start over?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind starting over. So I was a fitness trainer, and so at the time, you can imagine that walking with a broken leg and like black and blue all over, I probably wasn't going to be, training too many people, right? You see that? So I had to figure out a new solution. Again, going back to, some of the great things that Veronica talks about in being clear about this, I was clear that I couldn't go back to my gym and I still had to like produce a result for my family, right? Even though they were living with my ex, I still had to produce. And so I sat there and I meditated on it, and and God spoke clearly to me. He said, "Call so and so." At the time, I'd only met this person like once physically, and I'd spoken to this person like annually for 3 years. And God touched my heart and said, "Call this person; she'll be able to help you out." Ironically, that person, when I called them up, I said, "Hey, here's the deal. I just got into a serious car wreck. I went in a matter of like 10 minutes. I went from from being financially stable to $185,000 in debt. The reason I went so deeply into debt was because of the hospital bill as well as the ambulance bill. And so I called her up. I said, "Okay, so I'm 180 grand in debt because the guy that hit me only had $50,000 worth of insurance. So for all intents and purposes, I'm $135,000 in the hole." Yes. So with that, she said, "Well, that's unfortunate, and if you want my mentorship, it's going to cost you $1,000. So I'm like, "Okay, did you not just hear I'm already in debt?" And she said, "Yeah, but if you value it and if you value me, you'll put up." So of course I did, and it was the most amazing experience ever that I've had. Let me tell you, if you ever have a chance to invest in somebody who you believe can produce a result for you, invest, invest, invest. I did that one time, and as a matter of fact, I invested in her, and she said, "You know what, here's what we can do." And she literally had a 1-hour phone call with me. At the end of the phone call, she said, "Well, since you're in this position, this is what you need to do. Here's some phone numbers to call. Here's some people to get in touch with, and here's what I would recommend you do." I said, "All right, great. Thank you so much." She said, "All right, great." If you could ever punch a wall for this next statement, you'll understand why. She said, "Call me in 6 months when you've called everybody." And I said, "I'm sorry. Did you just say 6 months?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "So you're suggesting to me that I just paid $1,000 that I borrowed from my sister for a 60-minute phone call, and you want me to maybe call you in 6 months?" She's a gracious lady and a really classy individual. She said, "Well, if it happens that you get this stuff done before then, by all means, feel free to give me a call." So I did. I got it done within 1 week. I called her back and I said, "Hey, I got all of it done." And she said, "You're kidding." I said, "No." I said, "But I have a question for you. Why is it that you told me to call you back in 6 months maybe?" She said, "Well, because most people won't get it done in 12 months. So I was giving you some hope by asking you to call me back in 6. I've actually never had somebody call me back 6 days later." By that time, I'd already hired some people to outsource to, and I put them on contention. I said, "Here's my situation." They said, "Great." I said, "What I want to do is I'm going to go get some clients this week. I got faith. I'm going to go get some clients. When I get those clients, I'm going to come back and I'm going to pay you the first of the deposit for everything." I didn't make money with my in my business for the first 2 months. I literally didn't make any money because it all went to prepaying that forward so that I could secure my future. Based on that, I'm sitting before you 8 years later, telling you that was some of the most significant investments that I've ever made in my life, and it was fantastic. So, and as a result, just to go back, my mentor, so fantastic. She's still doing this, but let me tell you a little bit of a backstory on her. At that very moment, that week, her husband and her were, pretty prominent in the internet marketing space. I have no problem retelling this story because she tells the story openly on stage. Her and her sister found out that her husband was not exactly being as faithful as he should have been, or at least there were some things that weren't exactly going down the way that they should have been. And so the week that I actually called, she was in transit, literally in transit. I didn't know this for another 2 years. She was literally in transit, and when she was in transit of moving, because she found out that she made a decision she was going to leave her husband. One thing led to another, and what she decided to do was like, okay, so he wants to do this. I'm going to go do this. They went and put their card in the ATM machine to get gas for their U-Haul, only to find out that they'd been locked out of all of their accounts. Quite literally, she was relying on my money to be able to put gas into their vehicle that day. God works in mysterious ways. So that's what I want to share with you a little bit today is like, as we go through this, if you have a chance to be able to work with somebody who can provide some clarity for you, at least that peace of mind and get you centered and grounded into being able to, and just for clarification here, yes, I have my faith-based background. And yet, working with somebody like Veronica really helps me out, being able to like really, create some clarity, on a weekly basis. Because here's what comes with clarity. It comes lack of confusion. So when we talk about some of our clarity, what we want to be able to do is recognize that the devil literally is not in the details. How many of you guys have ever heard this? The devil is in the details. Anybody? Just go ahead and nod your head or something. Okay. Jeremiah, I can see you. Janine, Jen, you guys got got your pictures up, and that's all good. But the devil really isn't in the details. Success is in the specifics. Does that make sense? So when you're sitting there worrying about like the things that you want to be able to achieve, there you go, attaboy. So the things that you're concerned about wanting to achieve in your life, it's not the devil's in the details, the things you've got to do. The success is in the specifics. So as you're going through this, what I want you to do is, and today we've talked a little, am I going too fast for anybody? I have a tendency to talk really fast, okay? Mostly because I have a lot to say and I have little time to say it, and so I constantly think that God's trying to challenge me on this, so I do my best. So what we want to do is, if you're in marketing, if you're not in marketing, you got to understand that really, what I want you to realize is, what is it going to take for you to overcome your fears? So let me tell you this. I told you a little bit about my story about how I got into being an internet marketer. I don't want to tell you my whole life story, but back when I was 5, my parents told me I can be anything that I ever wanted to be in my life. A few years go by, 5 years goes by, I'm 10, 11, 12 years old. My aunts, my uncles, my family members start to ask me, say, Tyson, what do you want to be in your life? And I would say, I want to be an astronaut. And they'd tell me, like, hey, dial it back in. You need to be a little bit more realistic. Your future's almost here. So I'd start dialing that back. I'd start looking at the garbage truck driver. That's not a bad job, but, it's definitely not being an astronaut. I'm going around and I'm looking at some of these other people and I'm saying, here's the deal. Quite frankly, here's some great people with great jobs, but those jobs weren't exactly my dream. Now, just to be fair, I know people that were garbage truck owners or garbage truck, drivers that have built a fantastic lifestyle for themselves because that's what they use as their foundation. And they move beyond that. Make sense? So what we have here is, at 12 years old, I'm starting to look around these kinds of jobs. Maybe that's what I should be doing because, I was dreaming too big before. Now, all of a sudden, here I am, 16, and my parents are telling me, like, hey, you got to go out and get a job because you got to be able to make your own. Anybody know what kind of money you make at 16 years old? What kind of money do you make at 16 years old? I'll tell you what kind of money you make at 16 years old. You make your own spending money, don't you? You make your own spending money at 16 years old. So the very first opportunity that you have to actually go out there and generate revenue for yourself, to build a life, to build generate wealth for yourself, to be able to like have some achievement, it's for the sole intent of getting rid of it as soon as you get it. Does this make sense to you all? So what comes out of this? What comes of this is, quite frankly, that now here we are, trying to figure out. Excuse me for a minute. Trying to figure out real quick, like, what do I do? The only opportunity. So now my only association with wealth building is to get rid of it. There's no opportunity for me. So by the time I'm 18 years old, what do you think probably happens for most people? What happens for most people is simply this. They become 18 and their parents say, oh crap, I failed to cultivate your dreams. I failed to help you, recognize your true potential. Holy crap, please go get yourself an education. Go get yourself an education. And when you do, hopefully at best, you'll be able to have a job that pays you 2 weeks vacation, has good health benefits, and hopefully in 40 years, they'll still keep you around long enough that you'll be able to receive a pension, if that. So what happens? Lo and behold, what mom and dad are hoping for is that your job will now become your adult parent. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so now you've got an adult parent. Hang on just a minute, please. Now you've got an adult parent who really doesn't invest in you. They only invest in you to reap what they can out of you. Does that make sense to everybody? So what we want to do is we want to learn how to be able to step out on faith, develop what I refer to as our faith muscle. How many of you are aware of what a faith muscle is? Okay? Your faith muscle. This is the thing that Jesus talked about. This is the thing in all religions. They talk about this, but they don't talk about it the same way. You see, when they talk about faith without works is dead, so are the muscles in your body. Unless you're working out your muscles, you can't strengthen those muscles. You're not testing the boundaries of what your true potential is. Does that make sense to you? So as you're going through this, you want to make sure that you're always looking ahead. How is it that you can make a bigger impact on your family as you're moving ahead? What things have to take place? When we go and ask for, when you're a child, you're effectively at the mercy of those people that are providing for you. Would you agree, yes or no?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when you're at the mercy of those people that are willing to provide for you, that's being an employee. What you want to do is step out on faith and become an entrepreneur of some sort. Be somebody that is in charge of your outcomes. Makes sense. So here's what happens. There's 4 stages at going from employee to entrepreneur. Number 1, you're typically an employee. You're going to work for somebody else. When you're working for somebody else, what's going to happen is you're going to be mandated on what they tell you to do. If you're tired of that, there's only 4 opportunities for you to increase your wealth as an employee. And that is, you're going to go and get a raise, go get a job somewhere else, get a promotion, or you're going to get what we refer to as a side hustle. Does that make sense to everybody? So as you've got this side hustle that's going on, you realize that you can pretty much take control of what you were doing before, and now you're getting paid for results. You realize you get paid more for results than you do for your time. So what happens next? What happens next is quite simply, you begin to go out and you share how to be able to do this. And you say, I can have my own business, because you like the idea, I can have my own business. I can be responsible for me. I can be in control, right? But the deception with that is that when you're in a business, you are owned by the business. You don't really own it, do you? Because what happens at that point in time is quite simply this. You're running this business, but if somebody doesn't show up, guess who has to be there to keep the business open? That's going to be you. So how do we get around this? We do this little transition, what we refer to as we go from working in the business to working on the business. And there's only one key factor that you need to know about that helps you become somebody that can work on the business, not in the business. Do you know what that is? Please tell me no, so this way I feel like I have a big reveal, okay? Thank you, Jeremiah. I appreciate that. So the one thing that you actually really have to have in order to be successful and from transitioning from working in the business to working on the business is that you need to have an exit strategy. You need to have an exit strategy. So when we talk about our exit strategies, quite frankly, here's what we're talking about. We're talking about asking you to stop romanticizing ambiguity. See, the biggest thing for the biggest challenge for mom and pop shops out there is they really don't have an exit strategy. Here's the cool part. If you have an exit strategy, you're not actually obligated to exercise that option when the time comes. Does that make sense to everybody? You're not obligated to exercise that option. But unless you've got that option available, you really don't have any options at all. Does that make sense? So what we want for you is to stop romanticizing ambiguity when it comes down to whether or not I'm going to be somebody who's calling my own shots, can go on vacation whatever I want, gets paid whatever I want, because it's not true. But once you start transitioning into becoming an entrepreneur, what you're doing for yourself is you're developing your organization as a wealth-building asset. Do you see this? So what I want to encourage you to do is to recognize what your goals really are so that you're able to develop your business as a wealth-building asset. Because as long as it's a business and you're working in the business, you're still trading in your time for dollars, except for the business is telling you what to do, not your boss. When you become an entrepreneur, now you're starting to shift everything you think about your organization. You're starting to look at your standard operating procedures. You're starting to look at all the people that you're hiring. You're starting to look at how can you become more profitable? How can you make this organization independent of you so as long as it's generating wealth without you? That's the secret to independence and wealth. Do you see this? How many of you by chance know what your financial freedom number is? Many people don't. Many people say, I want to make $1 million. Here's the problem. Your mind is not conditioned. We talked about the faith muscle. You don't have a strong enough muscle to lift $1 million. So what we got to do is we got to be able to build that bridge from where we want to be to where we're at today. One of the first things I encourage you to do is to figure out how much you owe in expenses every month. You see, because all of us, whether it's 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, we all know what it's like to be able to generate that much money in a month, don't we? And so now you got to be able to learn how to convert that into an automatic payment so that money is coming in, so it covers all of your expenses plus your lifestyle on a monthly basis without you needing to get out of bed. Because God forbid you had to be there at work and your son, your daughter, your mom, your father, somebody close to you was hospitalized and you needed to be there for them. And you're having to sit there and struggle against the idea of like, here I am like wanting to be there, my heart's with you, but my job needs me. Because I'm still going to be alive if something happens. I mean, you're in that position right now. So what I want to encourage you to do is like figure out what that number is. How much money do you have to have coming in every month? And then how do you create with clarity a strategy in order to make that happen for you? Is that good information or not?
I love it.
Of course you do. Okay?
Let's ask Jenny and Jeremiah. I saw that Jen left, so.
Oh, Jen left? Okay, all right, great. Okay, that's fine. So anybody got any questions based on what we've shared so far today? Has this been good information?
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome. Perfect. Great. So my true passion is this, is that, we get out of the traditional cycle because after all, what we've seen in today's environment is quite simply this. What we've seen is that we've gone from having an educational system that brought us into higher level education into an education for profitability. May not have occurred to you, but did you realize that when they passed the No Child Left Behind, they really didn't care about whether or not your child got left behind. They wanted to push them right into the profiteering section of education.
Tyson, can I change a little bit direction? okay with you?
Certainly. I was going to flip over to that in a minute.
Yeah, so I want to talk because you have around 15 minutes. So I want to talk about marketing because I know that your strongest fit, because people don't know you, I know you.
Yes. So we wanted to get.
You know marketing like nobody else, and I want that value too.
Certainly, and we're getting right into that at the moment. Okay.
So you have around 15 minutes, so you know.
15?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Hopefully this has been of value to each and every one of you coming onto the call today. Because I think that this is really important for you to have a foundation, understanding how things work. So when we talk about this, when we talk about marketing, here's some strategies that you need to know about when you're doing this. Number one is that the market, and you'll want to write this down. The market is anyone who's willing and able to pay. And so the challenge for most people is they say, hey, I've got this great, who wouldn't want to buy this? If you don't know who would want to buy it, then you can't ask the question, who wouldn't want to buy it? Because of course, then all we're doing is we're romanticizing ambiguity. If you have ambiguous goals, you'll have ambiguous results. Does that make sense to everybody? So as we're moving forward with this, what we want to recognize is that those two things. If you have a market, if you have an audience who is willing but unable to pay, then your pricing is too high. If you have an audience that's able but unwilling, then your value proposition is not high enough. Do you see where those two work? So when we are referring to our market, what we really want to recognize is what's our value-based pricing. You see, most people, the challenge that they have is say, what do you think I should charge for this? I really don't care what you think you should charge for this. What I care about is how much value are you bringing to the table? And what's your price in comparison to the value? Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, so can you repeat those first two that you said real quick?
Okay, that's going to cost you, pal. So the first one is, attaboy. So the first one is anyone who's willing and able to pay. That's a market. By definition, if they're willing but unable, then it's priced too high. They want it, but they can't afford it. If they're able but unwilling, then your pricing, then your value is not high enough. Make sense? For example, that's why some people who pay for a Mercedes, they're able to pay for a Chevrolet, but they don't. It's because Chevrolet has not increased their value enough. Does that make sense? Okay? So recognize this. It's never about what do you think I should charge for this. It's always what value am I bringing to the table such that my audience is willing to pay for this. Here's a quick example of how this works, actually. And that is when you take a look at the value proposition of Crown Royal. Now, Crown Royal presented itself, and it was by all. Now, I'm not a big. Is it a whiskey? Geez, I hope it's a whiskey, because I'm not a Crown Royal drinker. Okay, all right. So Crown Royal is a whiskey. By all intents and definitions, it is a mid to low range tasting whiskey. But why is it a top shelf brand? Well, here's why. Because Crown Royal was actually nearly bankrupt when they decided, like, hey, we're almost out of business. What's the problem? And they said, you know what, let's do something extraordinarily bold. Again, exercising that faith muscle. They said, we'll call it Crown Royal. Why don't we put it into a purple bag, tie it up, and then put it into a box, and we'll double the price and put it on the top shelf. Now Crown Royal is a solid brand that people are more than happy to buy at $35 when it's only a $12 bottle. Why? Because of that brand recognition. What they brought to the table is they said, hey, we're going to bring in we're going to craft a reputation of being more valuable. We want it to, for only $1 more, they saved their entire organization. For $1 more a bottle, they rescued Crown Royal. They doubled the price, put it on the top shelf, gave it a more prestige position. What is the value that you're bringing to the table for other people? That's what you got to ask. What value is it that you're bringing? Or who are you to be able to bring that value to them? Does that make sense to everybody? So now we've covered the market and the marketing. The marketing is quite clearly the right message to the right market. The right message to the right market. In other words, if you know who your market is, in fact, what I encourage you to do is write down your avatar. And I don't want you, if you've ever heard this, like, who's your demographic? I don't give a darn about you having like, well, I'm men and women this age to that age. No. I want you to give your avatars the name. I want those people to be Betty and Fred. Why? Because you know those people. We superfluously know these characteristics, but when you start to give them a name, you build a relationship with them. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? So you want to be able to have that sense of relationship with your audience. Understand who they are. So when you recognize them out on the street, you know exactly who it is, and you know how to approach them, and you know what they value. Makes sense? You understand their values. You understand that Fred drives 65 miles a day in 2 hours worth of traffic. So you start to value what it is that he brings to the table. He doesn't want to have to go and think on certain things. It's not that he doesn't love his family, but for crying out loud, the poor guy's coming home exhausted, providing for them. Does that make sense to everybody? So you want to be able to understand who your market is and understand what kind of a message do you want to provide for them. How is it that you can really acknowledge the value that they bring to the table? Now that we've gone on to the marketing, marketing, you must have your avatar prepared in order for you to have that down. But the third thing you need to have, quite frankly, is you need to understand your brand. Now, many people will sit there and make kind of odd conversations about the brand. And the brand that they want to recommend or suggest that you have is, quite frankly, that it's the logo. It's the message. It's not. It's the experience. It's the experience that they're bringing to the table. Does that make sense? So what is the experience that they're having? What kind of experience do you want them to have? So when we're talking about this, it's the distinction between Nike and Reebok, quite frankly. Right? Most people would say they're high-performance shoes. Most people couldn't tell you exactly what the difference was, other than one has a swoosh, the other one has a different logo. I can tell you that they're very clear about their message and their brand. They're very clear about that. When you think of Nike, what you don't think of, or what you do think about with Nike, quite frankly, is you think about this, is that Nike is for all performance, organized athletic performance athletes. Both are performance shoes for athletes, but one is for organized athletics, and the other one is for the CrossFitters. It's a subtle distinction between the two. But when they understand who their market is, they understand what their message is, and they can craft that brand around it. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? So you want to definitely pay attention to that when you're dealing with who's your market, what's your marketing, and then what's your brand. What experience do you want your organization to have? When they think of you, how do you want them to think of you? Many people get that really confused. Oh, it's my name. Oh, it's my colors. No, it's the experience of your market in relationship to your organization. Okay? So, any other questions with that? Veronica, are we up with our time, or where are we at?
Yeah, we're perfect time for asking questions. So if you guys
so let's go ahead and answer some questions right now. Was this good information for you guys?
It was amazing. Thank you.
Tyson.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Very welcome. Certainly. So just to recap on this, when you're clear about these elements, you'll find that you have much more success. Do you see how being clear about who your audience is, what your market is, the people that you're talking to, and the brand that you have? Do you see how we're being clear about who you are to your to the world would produce a better result?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Any questions on this?
Do you guys have any questions to Tyson, or is it today going to be one of those days when it's the first time we're going to leave actually earlier?
Well,
Jeremiah always have questions.
I always got questions.
Jeremiah for that.
Well, this is just a free way of me asking a marketing guy. Obviously, my market would be Christian youth, And, I'm trying to reach out to them by doing especially during the summer, they have a bunch of youth Bible, summer camps. And over here in Alabama that I live, we have the biggest church in the country, Church of the Highlands, and they have a motion conference in July. And my problem is nobody knows who I am. It's obscure. I keep making these little films to get out there. It has nothing to do with the book, but it has the book, embedded into it. So that's my problem. Like, how do I get this Diaries of a Holy Night, the in-between, a story about 7 kids that God sends to a world called the in-between to save an angel from a demon king, but the true challenge starts when they get back, high school. How do I get that into
Great question. So here's a couple things to recognize, right? There's what we refer to as piggybacking on other people's success. So, for example, the Left Behind series. Start running your Facebook ads towards everybody that bought a Left Behind series book.
How do I do that?
So in your Facebook ads, if you're running Facebook ads, it'll say, like, who do you want to target? Say those people. So in the Facebook ads, you're going to see that they have, like, what's your audience demographic? You're going to say, like, people this age who are doing this sort of thing, right? How about this? So go over to this website called answerthepublic.com.
Answer the Public?
Answerthepublic.com. What's great about the answerthepublic.com, quite frankly, is that is a website that when you type in, like, let's say, Left Behind.
Yeah.
What it'll do is it'll produce a series of questions that people actually type into the computer, into the search engines for Left Behind. You can come up with, like, 196 different results for, like, who's left behind? What is the Left Behind series? What does it mean to be left behind? It'll come up with all those keywords. Those are actual keyword phrases that people are typing in, and then produce a video based on that that's relevant to you.
Awesome. Absolutely.
Make sense?
Okay. Because I use display purposes for Instagram, but I didn't know anything that I could use outside of that, especially for Facebook ads.
Run your YouTube. So here's the deal. Make a video on YouTube, okay, with that exact keyword phrase. What is left behind and what you can do to for salvation, let's just say, right? You're taking 2 different keyword phrases and combining them together. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Now you're going through and saying, like, this is what it really means. And I'll get into another strategy here in just a minute. This is what it really means. You talk about this, and then you go over to, as soon as you video that, you use that as your keyword phrase, put that in your title, okay? And then make certain that you go over as the title, and then make certain that you go over to pingler.com, Pingler. Pingler. What Pingler is going to do is you're going to type in the URL for YouTube. It'll say what is the category, and it'll submit that to all the search engines. This way, you don't have to wait for the search engines to find you. You're pushing your information out. Make sense?
Dude, that's awesome.
Okay, so we got that strategy that's out there. Now, the third thing you got to do when you do this is take that same video and embed it onto your website. Give it a quick 1-paragraph synopsis about what you're talking about in there. Give it the same URL, give it the same name, and then publish that as well. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, the one thing that I want to, here's the one secret to most people's success that most people don't know about. It's what I refer to as the profit model. Find somebody else that's doing exactly what you're doing and model them. Because success leaves clues. Does that make sense to you guys?
Absolutely.
So if you understand that Lowe's and Home Depot are almost identical except for in what area? Oh, they're different in who their market audience is, their marketing, and their brand, aren't they? One, the power of the Home Depot, right? All contractors, they effectively have the same thing, but what happens when you go into Lowe's? They're in blue and red, and you have a 12-foot wide aisle. Why is that? Because their primary target is not home improvement, home enhancement. And they want every woman that walks through there to look directly to the back of the store and see all of the cabinetry, all the upgrades, all the new stuff that they can have to be able to upgrade the home. That's why they have like a 12-foot wide, you're like sitting there like, that is such a waste of space. No, it isn't. In fact, if you look directly back there, they've got the most pristine washer and dryer back there. Why? Because every woman wants good appliances. Makes sense?
Makes sense.
Okay? So they're virtually the same in every respect when it comes to, like, you know, different brands, different products, same products, different brands, but ultimately the way that they address their audience is significantly different because they're clear about anybody in their market who's willing and able to pay, what their message is to that market, and then what experience do they want to have for that audience. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that being said, any other questions that you have, Jeremiah?
Would you like to buy my book? It's really good. You'll love it.
Yes. Send the link over. I'll pick it up. Absolutely. Love to support you in that.
You'll read the whole thing tonight. It's only 109,000 words. You'll be fine.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. Of course, I had nothing else going on.
Just my life. Yeah.
But I would love to read. No, I would love to read the book. I actually would. Okay. But clearly, you know, besides, everybody else catch what just happened there, right? He subtly got a connection to me because he knows as soon as I get that link and I buy that book, I'll probably be calling back up. You sneaky so-and-so.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, we're brothers in Christ, so, you know.
Well, okay. All right.
Here we go.
I got you, man. I got you. Okay. Yeah, got you covered, brother. All right. Janine, you got a question. Oh, okay. Jeremiah, any other questions, sir?
No, I do apologize. I got to figure out how to send that link. Let's see here.
Email it directly over to Veronica, and she'll hook me up on it.
Okay.
Okay. Jeannie, what do you got?
We're not hearing you, Jean.
Yeah. So what you don't have is a microphone.
We don't hear you, Jean. Check it again.
Hear me now?
Yes.
There we go. Okay. So first of all, Tyson, I just want to thank you for this information.
Jean, something. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Is that okay?
Oh, Jean, turn off your speakers. It's reverberating with your speakers and your microphone.
Thank you, Tyson. You know that better.
I'm not sure how to do that, actually. Sorry, I'm not sure how to turn them off.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Maybe if you have some earphones.
Veronica, turn your mic off too, please. Jeannie, you'll want to turn off your speakers, not your microphone.
I don't know how to do that. I just got a new computer and I'm not familiar with it. My question?
Okay, so Jeannie, what you're going to want to do is take it. Do you have a Windows? Do you have a PC or a Mac? PC. Take your cursor down to the far right-hand corner, and you'll see the speaker area right there. Do you see that? You'll see the speaker with the little icon right there in the lower right-hand corner. Probably going to be next to your clock and your date. Click on that, and then click on it again so the X is across, or so the red mark is across. Okay. Now begin.
Okay, did that work?
Thank you.
Way better.
Good. Okay, so I just want to thank you, Tyson, for the information. One thing that I've been wondering is I understand and I do agree with the pricing needs to be, the value needs to be matched with what you're charging. I think that's really important. What I'm thinking about is the women and children that I'm going to be working with, I want to help empower them. And a lot of them, I can see them coming out of situations that I myself was in, where I went through a traumatic divorce, and then I needed help with empowerment and believing in myself and getting over that trauma, but I was broke at that point. I didn't have the money. And so I think there are going to be a lot of women who are going to be in that same situation. So it's like I want to cater to their needs, which, you know, do I lower the price to include them and help them through their needs? Or, because I know a lot of women won't be able to afford what I may be able to offer, but I want to help them.
So what I encourage you to do is, one, recognize that, you know, you challenge yourself. Here's kind of a typical scenario. We'll tend to want to give up and say, like, you know, maybe I need to lower my price for the people. But you know that they're going to Starbucks and blowing out like $100 a month. And so now it's a value-based relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So are they going to spend $100 at Starbucks or $100 with you to, like, you know, for empowerment? And I don't know what the pricing is, but, you know, start to look at some of the other people that you want to model. What are they charging and how are they positioning themselves? Make sense?
Yeah.
Tyson, you're just having the same problem as Jenny had.
What was that?
For Jenny, okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Tyson. That makes sense.
Okay, turn off your mic real quick. There you go. Okay. All right. So we good? Everybody good?
Yeah. Thank you so much for all your time. And
You're very welcome.
Nice to hear your story. I've never heard your story before, so it was really, really cool to know.
Very good.
The best.
Usually the way we work with Tyson is talking about problems that Kristen and I didn't know this. It was quite amazing. So thank you so much for all your time today and all your value. Truly appreciate you.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, everybody.
God bless you, man. You have a good night.
God bless. Have a good night. Jeremiah, make sure you get Veronica that one.